My husband said he was going out, so I followed him. In a chapel, my sister stood in a white dress. She doesn't know, right? I left quietly. When they came home, they froze at the doorstep. My sister was wearing white. Not off-white, not cream. Not the kind of white that gives someone plausible deniability later. It was more of an ivory, really. But the full, deliberate, chosen with purpose white of a bride who has made a decision and is standing inside it. She was holding flowers. Small ones, pale pink peonies, tied with a ribbon. The kind of detail you choose when you have been thinking about this for a long time. The chapel was small. One of those civil ceremony venues you find in the older part of the city. 12 rows of wooden pews. Afternoon light coming through the windows at an angle that I know objectively is beautiful. I was standing in the back, in the shadow of the entry arch, and my sister was at the front, and my husband was standing beside her with his back to me, and neither of them could see me. She said something to the officiant and laughed, and it was her real laugh, the one I know better than any sound in the world, the one from before she learned to perform laughing. Then the man beside her, her witness, an older guy I didn't recognize, leaned toward my husband and said, low, almost casual, the way people say things they've already made peace with. She doesn't know, right? My husband said no. I stood in that doorway for another 45 seconds. Then I left, quietly. The way you leave a room when you've seen something that can't be unseen and you need to decide in the cold air outside what kind of person you're going to be when they come home. I need to tell you about Nadia before I tell you the rest. My sister Nadia is 3 years younger than me. She is 31. We grew up in the same house, shared a bedroom until I was 14, went to the same schools, watched the same movies, knew each other the way only sisters who have been each other's primary witness can know someone. The accumulated weight of 1,000 ordinary moments that becomes, over time, the structure of who you think a person is. She was the maid of honor at my wedding. She stood on my left and held my flowers while I put on my ring, and she cried during the vows. The real cry, with effort, the kind that means something. And she gave a speech at the reception that made every person in the room laugh, and then go quiet with something that was almost tenderness. I thought I knew her. My husband Daniel and I had been married for 4 years. He is 36, works in commercial real estate, and has the particular gift of being effortlessly likable. The kind of man who is easy to be around, who makes rooms comfortable, who people describe as solid and reliable, and the various words that mean you can count on someone. I had counted on him. The first thing I want to tell you is that I didn't suspect. This is not a story about warning signs I ignored or red flags I explained away. It is a story about two people who had my complete trust, operating in a space that trust created. The second thing I want to tell you is that I found out by accident, and that the accident was the specific kind that cannot be undone. It was a Saturday in March. Daniel told me at breakfast that he was going to look at a property, a listing he needed to walk before a client meeting Monday. Shouldn't take more than a couple hours. He'd be back by 3. This was plausible. He looks at properties on weekends often enough that I have stopped registering it as unusual. I said, okay, I'll probably do the grocery run while you're out. He left at 11:15. I was in the kitchen 20 minutes later when my phone buzzed. A notification from the Find My app. We have location sharing turned on, the practical kind that married people do, so neither person has to text "Where are you?" every time someone is late. I hadn't pulled it up in months. I pulled it up now for no particular reason. The idle curiosity of a Saturday morning. His location was not a property listing. It was an address I didn't recognize on Clement Street, in a neighborhood I associate with small restaurants and an old church I'd passed a few times. I stood in my kitchen for a moment, then I got in my car. I want to tell you about the drive because it mattered. It took 11 minutes. I spent those 11 minutes telling myself reasonable things. He changed plans and forgot to mention it. He's meeting someone for coffee first. There's a property nearby I'm not thinking of. I told myself these things with the specific diligence of someone who is aware they are telling themselves things and is doing it anyway, because the alternative is sitting with a feeling that hasn't been confirmed yet. I parked half a block down. The address was a chapel. White stone, wooden double doors propped open, a small hand-lettered sign by the entrance, private ceremony, Saturday 12 by. I sat in my car for 30 seconds. Then I walked to the door. Then I saw my sister in white, holding peonies, standing at the front of a chapel beside my husband who had told me he was looking at a property. I stood in the back for 45 seconds. I heard, she doesn't know, right? I heard, no. I left. The cold air outside the chapel was the specific cold of a March afternoon that hasn't decided yet whether it's still winter. And I stood on the sidewalk and felt it and thought about what I had and what I was going to do with it. This is the part of the story where some people would have gone back in, confronted them in the ceremony, made a scene in the 12 rows of pews with the afternoon light coming through the windows. I understood the appeal. I genuinely did. But I am not a person who performs her pain for an audience, and I am not a person who makes decisions when my hands are shaking, and my hands were shaking. So I did the thing I do when I need to think clearly. I called my attorney. Her name is Claire Novak. She has been practicing family law for 16 years, and she is the kind of person who answers her phone on a Saturday because she understands that the situations that require her don't schedule themselves for business hours. I had used her once before for a contract dispute that had nothing to do with any of this, and I had kept her number because she was good, and because my mother always told me to keep the number of a good lawyer the way you keep a good doctor's. She answered on the third ring. I told her what I had seen. I told her precisely. The chapel, the dress, the flowers, the witness's question, Daniel's answer. I told her I had left without confronting them. I told her they would be home by approximately approximately 3 o'clock. Claire was quiet for 4 seconds. Are you safe? She said first. Yes, I said. Okay. Her voice shifted into the register of someone moving from concern to analysis. The ceremony doesn't constitute a legal marriage. You're legally married to him. Any ceremony he participates in with another person has no legal standing. I know, I said. That's not actually what I'm concerned about. What are you concerned about? I thought about it. The house, I said. The accounts. Making sure that when this conversation happens this afternoon, I'm not standing in it empty-handed. A pause. Where are you right now? Sitting in my car outside the chapel, I said. Go home, she said. Don't move anything. Don't take anything. Don't send any texts. I'm going to make 2 calls, and then I'm going to call you back in 20 minutes. Okay, I said. One more thing, Claire said. Take a screenshot of the find my location before you start the car. Timestamp, address visible, his name on the pin. Do it right now. I did it right then. Good, she said. Go home. Claire called back in 18 minutes. I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee I wasn't drinking, and I answered before the second ring. She had spoken to her colleague, a financial attorney named Robert Yee, 22 years specializing in marital assets and dissolution, who was available Monday morning for an emergency consultation. She had also spoken to a private investigator she works with regularly, a woman named Diane Torres, 11 years of domestic and civil investigation, who could pull the chapel's permit records and ceremony filings and verify what I had witnessed with documentation that would be court usable. Here's what you're going to do this afternoon, Claire said. You're going to be in your house when they arrive. You're not going to confront, accuse, or ask questions. You're going to let them walk in, and you're going to observe. Observe what? Their first reaction, she said, when they see you standing there. That reaction is information. You want to see it before they've had time to compose. I understood what she was saying. And then? I asked. And then you're going to excuse yourself. Say you have a headache and let the evening be normal. You have the weekend to get your documentation in order. Monday morning we meet with Robert and we know exactly where you stand before you have a single conversation about any of this. That's 2 days, I said. I know, she said. Can you do it? I thought about my sister's laugh. The real one. Yes, I said. I spent Saturday afternoon doing 3 things. First, I photographed every shared document I could access. Account statements, the mortgage paperwork, the title on Daniel's car, the investment account statements that I had always had access to, but had stopped monitoring closely because I trusted him. Second, I wrote down everything I remembered from the chapel in a notes document with a timestamp. The dress, the flowers, the witness, the exact words, the time I arrived, the time I left, everything. Third, I called my best friend Renata, who has known me for 20 years, and who I trust with the information that matters. I told her what I had seen. I told her I needed her to know in case anything happened, and I told her I was okay, and she said, I'm coming over. I said, not yet. She said, the minute you need me. I said, I know. Then I sat in my living room and waited. At 3:17 p.m., I heard Daniel's key in the lock. He came in first. He was already talking, something about the property, the listing, the drive back, the comfortable patter of a man returning home from an ordinary Saturday, and I watched the words stop forming when he saw me sitting in the living room with my coffee cup and my hands in my lap, his face. I will not describe everything that moved through it in the 2 seconds before he composed it, because some of that is information I needed and don't owe anyone. What I will tell you is that it was sufficient, that it confirmed in 2 seconds, without a single word, everything I needed confirmed. Behind him, Nadia walked in. She froze. She was still wearing a small pin at her collar, one of the peonies, I think, or something from the flowers, a small pale remnant of the afternoon. She may not have realized it was there. I looked at my sister. She looked at me. The room was completely quiet. Hi, I said, the most ordinary word. Perfectly conversational. Neither of them spoke. I was just going to order dinner, I said. Are you staying, Nadia? She didn't stay for dinner. She left within 4 minutes, with the slightly too casual speed of someone extracting themselves from a situation and hoping the extraction looks like a normal departure. Daniel made conversation over dinner. He is a gifted conversationalist under normal circumstances, and under these circumstances he was working hard. Questions about my day, a story about the property that I now understood was a fabrication, the performance of an ordinary evening. I matched him. This is perhaps the thing I am least comfortable about. Looking back, I am good at performance too. I had a conversation about nothing over dinner with a man who had stood in a chapel at noon and participated in a ceremony with my sister, and I gave him nothing. No tells, no cold silences, no searching looks. I had a headache. I said so. I went to bed at 9:30. I lay in the dark and listened to him moving around the kitchen and thought about Renata, who had texted at 7 gay, still okay, and to whom I had texted back, yes, Monday. I thought about Claire's voice saying, that reaction is information. I thought about Robert Yee, 22 years of marital assets, available Monday morning. I thought about the peony pin at Nadia's collar. I slept 4 hours. Sunday I spent with Robert Yee's preliminary assessment, which Claire had sent at 8:00 a.m. Via email, a 6-page overview of my position under California family law. The house, purchased jointly but with a down payment that was entirely mine, documented. The investment account that had been funded approximately 60% by my income over 4 years, documented. The car, the shared savings, the retirement accounts. The picture it painted was of a marital estate in which my contribution was substantial and well documented, and in which I was, contrary to what Daniel might assume, not the less less informed party. Robert's email had a note at the bottom. Based on what you've described, initiation of proceedings sooner rather than later is in your interest. Monday we'll discuss specifics. I read it twice. Then I called Nadia. She answered on the second ring with the careful brightness of someone who has been expecting a call and has prepared for multiple versions of it. Hey, she said. I saw you yesterday. I said. Silence. The particular silence of a held breath. At the chapel, I said. Nadia. I was there. She did not deny it. I want to give her that. When the moment came, she didn't insult me with denial. Oh God, she said. Her voice lost its brightness all at once, the way a room changes when the light goes. Lauren. I don't want to do this on the phone, I said. I'm telling you, I know. I'm telling you that you should talk to Daniel before Monday, because Monday things start moving, and after that, the conversation is different. What does that mean? She said. It means get ahead of it, I said. That's the only advice I'm going to give you. I ended the call. Monday morning, I sat across from Claire Novak and Robert Yee in Claire's conference room on the 14th floor with a view of the city below, and we spent 2 hours going through every number and document and building a picture of exactly where I stood. It was a good picture. Not painless, not simple, but clear and well-supported and mine. Robert had a way of presenting information, flat, organized, without drama, that I found calming in the way that facts are calming when you need to make decisions. The house would require a buyout or a sale. The investment account would need a formal division. There were logistics, timelines, a sequence of steps that would each require decisions. You're in a strong position, Robert said at the end, because you documented. I've always documented, I said. I didn't know I was doing it for this. He looked at me over his glasses. Most people don't document, he said. Then they wish they had. Claire filed the initial paperwork that afternoon. Daniel was served on Tuesday at 10:47 a.m. at his office. I know the time because his assistant, who does not know me and has no loyalty to either of us, but is a professional who keeps records, confirmed the timestamp when Claire's process server logged it. Nadia called me on Wednesday. Not the prepared brightness of Sunday. Something underneath that. The voice I actually know. The one from before we both learned to perform. I'm so sorry, she said. I had been waiting for this call and I had not known until it came what I was going to do with it. I know you are, I said. That's not enough, she said. No, I said. It isn't. She was quiet. How long? I said. Not a question exactly. An opening. 2 years, she said. 2 years. I sat with the number. I kept thinking it would stop, she said. I kept thinking I would stop, but you didn't, I said. No, she said. I wanted to ask her about the maid of honor speech, about the crying during the vows, about 12 years of shared birthdays and the bedroom we split until I was 14, and every ordinary accumulated moment that I had built my understanding of who she was on. I wanted to ask how someone does both things at once, loves genuinely and deceives completely, without one canceling out the other. I didn't ask. Some questions aren't for the person who hurt you. They're for you, to work through on your own, in your own time, with someone who can help. I'm going to need space, I said. A significant amount of it, for a long time. I know, she said. I don't know what's on the other side of it, I said. I'm not promising anything. I know, she said again. We stayed on the line for another moment without speaking. Then I said, I loved you the way you love someone you've known your whole life. She started crying, the real cry. I know, she said. I know you did. Okay, I said. I ended the call. I have been in my house alone for 6 weeks. It is the house I put the down payment on, and it is mine in every sense that matters, and will be mine in the legal sense within the timeline Robert has outlined. 6 to 9 months, standard proceedings, well documented. Renata came over the first weekend and we ordered Thai food and watched 3 hours of television, and she did not ask me how I was doing, because she knows that how are you doing is not always the right question, and that sometimes the right thing is just to be present in someone's living room with Pad CU and the remote. I am in therapy with a woman named Dr. Sandra Park, 15 years of clinical practice specializing in trauma and relational recovery, who said something in our first session that I have thought about regularly. Grief doesn't arrive on a schedule, and it doesn't require your permission. I have found this accurate. Daniel has moved out. His things are in storage and he is in a rental, and we communicate through our attorneys, which is the correct distance for this stage. Nadia and I have not spoken since the Wednesday call. I do not know when that will change. I hold the question at the edge of things and do not push it. Here is what I think about now. I think about standing in that doorway for 45 seconds, the light through the windows, my sister's real laugh, the peonies. I think about getting in my car. I think about the specific choice, which I understood was a choice in the cold air outside the chapel, with shaking hands, to leave quietly, to not perform my pain in that room, to go home and call Claire and take a screenshot and sit at my kitchen table and wait. I was not strategic because I am cold. I want to be clear about that. I was strategic because I understood that what I had seen was going to require me to be more than just hurt. It was going to require me to be capable, and I could be hurt later. I could be hurt completely, as much as I needed, on my own schedule. But in that moment, what the situation needed was someone who could think. They came home and they froze in my doorway, and I said, hi. And I meant, I already know. And I meant, I've already moved. And I meant, you cannot ambush someone who has already decided what she is going to do. There is a photo of me and Nadia from 10 years ago. We're at a beach somewhere. She's laughing, the real one. I haven't taken it off the wall yet. I'm not sure when I will. Maybe that's okay. Some things you put down when you're ready, not before.